We're a little bit east of Los Angeles, a place called Tankland. It's a lovely, warm, sunny day, perfect for having a look at an open-top vehicle like the one behind me. The story for it starts in October of 1948 in Fort Monroe. An anti-tank panel was established, and during the course of deliberations, they decided that they needed a self-propelled, high-velocity, small-caliber anti-tank weapon, which could be air-transportable and used to protect airheads. This was sent up to the Army Airborne Panel in 1948 December. They endorsed the idea, they kicked it up to Ordnance. Ordnance sat on it until the 27th of April 1950, at which point they started the project for the T-101. And they then gave Cadillac the contract to build 2 pilots. Now, initially the idea was that they were going to make this thing transportable by an aircraft with a payload of up to about 16,000 pounds. However, perhaps recalling the M22 debacle, they changed the requirement a little bit so that they could throw it at the back of the airplane on a parachute. When fully kitted out with 6 parachutes and all the assorted extra equipment, the aircraft had to lift a payload of about 20,600. However, undeterred by this, the project continued for 83 months and $2.5 million in development. The final product was the M56 Scorpion, also known as the SPAT, self-propelled anti-tank. The manual describes the vehicle as, and I quote, "a highly maneuverable and mobile 90mm gun mount qualified to traverse muddy or marshy terrain, snow and sand. Its lightweight enables it to be transported in a heavy assault glider or cargo aircraft and to be airdropped." Well, as you're looking at it, the first thing you'll see is it's a tad lacking in the protection department, hence lightweight. In fact, there is no armor on this thing whatsoever except the gun shield, and the only thing stopping the vehicle from being completely deformed if it should run across anything more heavily armored than a bush is the reinforcing ribs and this guard plate at the front here. The other unusual feature about the vehicle that you will very quickly notice is the unusual running gear, so we might as well start there. 4 pneumatic road wheels are mounted on torsion bar suspension on each side. Now, pneumatic road wheels were chosen because they were lighter. The tires are 7.5 by 12 plies. They're inflated to 75 psi, and they are run flats. The manual states that they're good for about 15 miles at 15 miles an hour. To take the weight of the vehicle, there are 6 torsion bars, but only 4 road wheels. What's going on? Well, the answer is that the standard weight of the vehicle is ordinarily taken up by 1 torsion bar per wheel. But the front and the last road wheels each have an additional torsion bar. It's hollow, it goes around the standard torsion bar, and that takes the extra weight from the shock of hitting bumps or from firing. There are also shock absorbers on the front and the last road wheels, and the vehicle needs them. The tracks themselves consist of 8 44-inch long sections which are bolted together. They consist of 2 bands of rubber and steel that are connected by steel grousers with rubber track pads. 20 inches wide, they give a ground pressure of only 4.5 pounds to the square inch. Ground clearance is 15 inches, it'll cross a 4-foot trench, scale a 30-inch wall, and it'll afford to a depth of 42 inches or with preparation 60 inches. Track tension is conducted, of course, at the idler at the rear of the vehicle. Moving up on the hull, storage compartment, antenna mount, grenade box, and forward of that we're going to have the batteries on the left front. They're under the exhaust. To access it, you actually have to undo the clamp, rotate the exhaust up and over, and then you can access the battery compartment. Of course, the battery is removed from this vehicle. Moving further forward, we've got the left headlight set, service drive, infrared, markers, and blackout. Which now brings us to the engine compartment, front and center of the vehicle. So one of the nice things about having a vehicle that has no armor whatsoever is that accessing the plates is actually a much easier prospect. It's not very heavy. Holding the hood down is a locking lever on each bottom corner. There is a hinge at the top. So in theory, this will open up like the regular hood of a car. There's a little prop stand inside to keep it open. However, the hinges on this one are broken. So by the magic of editing, we're gonna make this one just vanish. The engine itself is Continental AOI 402-5. It actually all means something. So A, air-cooled, O, opposed cylinder, I, fuel injection. 402, surprise, surprise, 402 cubic inches. -5 means it's the 5th one of the series. The front of the engine is determined by where the accessories are. In this case, the accessories are at the rear of the engine compartment. So the front right of the engine, or the left rear of the engine compartment, is where you'll find your oil filler and dipstick. Takes 13 quarts of oil. The 6-cylinder engine itself is rated at 200 horsepower, 3,000 RPM, 355 foot-pounds of torque at 2,750 RPM, and it runs on 80 octane gasoline. Forward of the engine compartment, transmission as you'd expect. To access it, pull forward the travel lock. There's another locking lever and simply lift up the transmission lid. Underneath is the Allison CD 150-4 transmission. Again, it all means something. CD, cross drive, 150, input horsepower, -4, the 4th model of the series. Now, hang on a second, you're probably saying to yourself. The engine is 200 horsepower, but the transmission is only 150 input. What's going on? Well, engines are usually rated as gross horsepower. So you say it's a 200 horsepower engine, that is true. But once you add on all the accessories and so on, the net horsepower is substantially less. In this case, the Continental, gross 200, net is only rated at 155. So that's why there's only 150 or so coming into the cross-drive transmission. The transmission itself is a torque converter. It's got 2 speeds forward, low and high, neutral and reverse. Steering is controlled by control disc clutches, also the brakes. Transmission oil at the front, 13 quarts, and it appears to be in relatively good condition. Now, I guess I should detour a little bit at this point and respond to a couple of comments that keep coming up on the videos and the past. And they're along the lines of, why do you keep telling us this? Why do I care whether or not this thing takes 13 quarts of oil or how you tension the track? Tell us about how awesome the gun was and how it performed in battle. Well, it is certainly true that you're probably not likely to ever need to know how to operate a museum piece. What I'm more trying to get across, though, is what it takes to operate a vehicle. I mean, we tank crews take a lot of time taking care of our tanks, so that for the small amount of time that we're fighting, the vehicle is taking care of us. And there's all the support that goes into it. It's a lot more complicated than you think from just operating your car. And things like combat history, you can probably find pretty easily online. So anyway, that little detour made, I'm gonna close up here and we're gonna keep going around. Right-hand side of the vehicle, another headlight set. The horn ordinarily would be here. It appears to have been disconnected. Moving further back, we have another storage box. The ramming staff will go in here, for example. Moving further behind the storage compartment on the right side, we're going to have a mounting point for a handheld fire extinguisher, marker light, tail light, and this brings us to the rear of the vehicle. There actually isn't very much on the hull itself. There's a tow pintle, a couple of clevis mounts, and a rack for the Pioneer tools. That's it for the hull. We'll be back in part 2 with the crew positions. Firing this gun would have been, we'll call it an adrenaline rush for that right now. You can see how quickly the round will come out and hit you.